seems that a lot of people don't understand that all of the politicians in Washington have taken an oath of office to defend, protect, support, whatever, the Constitution of the United States. And what's your opinion about that? Do you feel like the Washington politicians are constantly thinking of their oath of office when they write legislation and vote? What do you think?
Probably not, but I think they should be. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution requires all members of Congress to take an oath to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution. My copy of the Constitution doesn't say they've got to take an oath to uphold, protect, and defend whatever set of rules the Supreme Court will allow them to get away with. It says the Constitution itself. So in my mind, that means they've got to look to the text. They've got to look to the document. They've got to look to the way it was written, the way it was understood by the founding generation, in order to understand whether or to what extent they're complying with that oath. And if they're not, then they're oath breakers.
Okay, would you also consider that to be an act of perjury as well? You're an attorney, aren't you?
I am an attorney.
Okay.
Look, anytime you take an oath and you knowingly break it, there are profound consequences for that. We wouldn't typically classify that as perjury, but we would classify that as oath breaking and a breach of public trust.
Okay. When we fill out a tax return, we have to sign swearing that all of the information is true, full, and correct, or under the penalties of perjury.
Right.
Now, a politician in Washington, does he also have to sign an oath of office too?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, what is that? Is there a special term for that you know of?
I think there's just a document accompanied with the oath of office indicating that they've signed it, and there may be a written version of it, I don't know.
Okay, what would you recommend would be an important thing to do for most people that might see this documentary to prepare themselves for voting in the next election?
Ask their members of Congress and all candidates who are seeking office, federal office of any kind, will you follow the text of the Constitution? Whenever they're supporting or voting for or against any piece of legislation, ask them, what is it in Article 1, Section 8 that gives them the power to do this? If they can't answer that in one word or one sentence based on the text of the Constitution, they need to be released.
Okay, and one last question. What is the penalty for violating one's oath of office, or is there a penalty?
In this context, we're talking about violating an oath of office in a way that the courts might allow them to get away with. So there's no penalty that we're going to be able to enforce in court. But there is a different penalty called for by the Constitution, and that's called losing an election.
Okay. And one more thought on that. I have a friend who's a retired major general, and he says when a military person violates his oath of office, it's Leavenworth.
Right.
But I guess a politician is above that and doesn't need to worry about that.
Yeah, perhaps they shouldn't be above that anymore.
Okay, great.
Maybe we ought to send some of them to Leavenworth as well.
Yes. You have a message of hope.
I do. I do have a message of hope. It's a message that says that we can reclaim our future. We can reclaim what we're entitled to as Americans if we restore the constitutional debate. If we return to an understanding that Congress isn't supposed to be all things to all people, that our federal government isn't there to solve all of our problems, but that a lot of our problems can be solved a lot more effectively if Congress will stick to those limited powers they were given by the Constitution.
Great. And it looks like, you're going to have a big sort of missionary opportunity for the cause of freedom and for the cause of the Constitution. And how hopeful are you with that cause, considering who's going to be there should you be elected? And yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm very confident about it because the words of the Constitution, just about 4,500 words long, resonate with the people. And it also happens to be the case that it's the law of the land. It's our law of laws. The political change that we're seeing this year is unmistakable. But we have to remember that there are some things in our laws that were intended never to change, or at least to be very, very difficult to change. And that's the Constitution. That's why we have it. It's supposed to be a law that doesn't change from one administration to another or from one Congress to another. It's supposed to remain consistent. And it's that law that says the federal government's there just to do a few basic things like national defense and immigration and regulating interstate and foreign trade, to name a few.
Now, the next national election, 2010, are there going to be enough seats available to get enough fresh blood in there to really do some great things?
Certainly. I mean, of course, every seat in the House of Representatives is up every 2 years. Every seat in the House of Representatives will be up this year. About a third of the seats in the U.S. Senate will be up this year, and I think a lot of those seats are going to change hands, and a lot of people are going to be replaced with new people who will stand for constitutionally limited government. There aren't that many voices for self-restraint under the Constitution there right now. There are about to be a lot more. I think we'll have between 10 and 12 by the end of this year.
Do you think we're going to have a 70% majority of more conservative thinking in the House and Senate in 2010?
That I can't. That I wouldn't promise. That I wouldn't expect. But any progress we can make in this area is good progress, and it's progress toward an eventual bigger change in our federal government.
Maybe a more general question. Do you think we might have 70% of Republicans? It seems like everyone's upset with the Democrats, and it looks like Democrats are not going to get into office. And if all the Republicans take the available seats, would that do a 70%?
I would love to see a 70% supermajority in Congress from Republicans. I don't expect it, but we'll see.
Well, the Democrats have been able to do it, so that'd be something. Well, the reason we're having this interview now is because we want more time from you on this DVD that's going to go to all the state delegates. We're going to send it out at the end of the week. And so what could you kind of put in a nutshell that you think people should hear that separate you from the other candidates?
I've spent a lifetime studying the Constitution. I started worrying about the erosion of state sovereignty by the time I was 10. And I know that's kind of weird, but I guess I was a weird kid. But it's that kind of person that you want representing you in the United States Senate. You want somebody who has been deeply bothered since he was a little kid about the fact that the federal government has bit by bit rendered the 10th Amendment almost meaningless by pretending that it has the power to do anything and everything it wants. That has to change, and it has to change right now. And we in Utah need to be at the cutting edge of that change. If we in Utah can't send 2 senators back to the U.S. Senate every single time, who will stand for constitutionally limited government and who will exercise self-restraint in the powers they wield, who can? And I hate to quote Democratic presidents, but if not us, who? And if not now, when? I look at Utah, and that's what I think.